Okay, everybody, just a short video today. We've all heard by now Dr. Fauci appeared before a Senate hearing this week to examine COVID-19 origins. He didn't answer a single question. He refused to answer. Now, Dr. Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment right to avoid compelled testimony. Every time he was asked a question by the senators, he would recite, "On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution." Over and over, that's what he said. And at one point, the lawyer tried to intervene on behalf of his client and was ejected from the hearing by Senator Rand Paul, who led the committee hearing. Senator Paul has been hounding Dr. Fauci for years about COVID origins. Now, I admire Senator Paul. I admire all of the senators. In my view, and this is just my view, because everyone who watched the hearing probably had a different reaction. As I watched it, I saw Dr. Fauci as a witness giving testimony, and it's never easy for witnesses. Now, some lawyer witnesses often don't perform any better than non-lawyer witnesses. People get nervous testifying under oath. They do. However, I learned something new watching Dr. Fauci's performance this week, and that is possibly that the more you testify, maybe the easier it gets, because Dr. Fauci, during his opening statement, mentioned he's given testimony in hearings like this well over 200 times in his 38 years as director of the Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at NIH. And I would say that despite Dr. Fauci not answering a single question, and despite the fact that I really wanted to hear his answers to some of the questions that were asked, Dr. Fauci still came off like a rock star. As a witness, he was a rock star. Now, his lawyer, who got ejected from the hearing, had to have been proud of him. Dr. Fauci stared down a room full of senators who are some of the smartest, toughest bastards in America, and I use that term with great admiration, obviously. Our senators on both sides of the aisle are the best. I'll say round one goes to Dr. Fauci. He's an esteemed doctor and scientist who many Americans believe saved us all during COVID. Now, despite the fact that I believe gain-of-function research is a horrible idea, and I believe that the only reason why gain-of-function research was being conducted by our government, allegedly, is because of our enemies abroad doing it, and we didn't want to fall behind. Now, our government frequently makes decisions on that basis. We don't want to be doing any type of weapons research at all, of course not, but if our enemies abroad are doing it, we cannot fall behind. That's the reality. Now, do I believe that Dr. Fauci is a realist? Oh, yes. NIH, the National Institutes of Health, is the federal government's principal agency for conducting and funding medical and biomedical research. A strong argument could be made that Dr. Fauci was literally just doing his job. Now, Senator Paul mentioned at the hearing that a mother and her daughter were at an outdoor event, not wearing masks, and they were arrested. Now, that's horrible, okay? Never should have happened. It happened because COVID was a black swan event, as Mark Cuban has called it, and the government put in place rules for social distancing, masking, etc., in an emergent crisis to try to save lives. That was the reason. The rules on social distancing and masking were taken directly from the U.S. government response to the 1919 flu pandemic. Now, here's a couple of posters from that era. Okay, this one says, "Turn away to cough. It will help prevent many diseases." Can't argue with that. Now, this one says, "Wear a mask and wash your hands. Avoid touching your face. Maintain a safe distance from others." Now, we've all heard that advice. Now, this one says, "Halt the epidemic. Stop spitting, everybody." Now, I'll say, if that mother and daughter that Senator Paul spoke of were convicted, they could potentially be pardoned by their state's governor. And then they could consult an attorney about expunging their criminal records, which isn't always a complete remedy. So it's understandable that Senator Paul has come down so strongly. And Senator Paul, it's his job as well, literally his job, to investigate potential breaches of duty by government officials. Now, let's watch a clip from Dr. Fauci's opening statement in which he explains why he's pleading the Fifth and won't answer any questions.
During and after the COVID pandemic, I have appeared multiple times for hearings in the Senate and the House, usually under oath, and sat for several days-long transcribed sworn interviews answering questions about the very issues that are now the subject of this hearing. However, Given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution, his repeated slanderous comments about me, and recently his publicly releasing my unredacted personal diary aimed at embarrassing and intimidating me, the only conclusion I can reach is that the sole reason he is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something, anything, that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, quote, behind bars, unquote. Any reasonable person who has followed his unhinged obsession with me would readily come to the same conclusion. Therefore, although it pains me to do so, because of the respect I have for the legislative branch of government and my decades-long record of cooperating with Congress, under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
Now, that was a rock star statement, in my view. He became a rock star during the pandemic, and apparently that still pertains. Now, maybe fans of Dr. Fauci are just reacting to his insane charisma. That could be it. In any event, he pled the Fifth, despite receiving a very broad pardon from President Joe Biden right before he left office. Now, the Fifth Amendment, of course, encompasses the right to remain silent on the ground of avoiding potential self-incrimination. Most legal scholars are of the opinion that the privilege against self-incrimination only pertains when there is a risk of self-incrimination and he's been pardoned. Now, the senators are considering legal action up to and including an action in contempt to force him to speak. Now, theoretically, he could be jailed until he speaks, but in my view, it won't get to that point because I would say Dr. Fauci does have the right to plead the Fifth because the senators have publicly declared their intent to keep hounding him until he's behind bars, quote unquote. Come on now, Dr. Fauci wins round one. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe.